All women are different, but they are all women. This video is androcentric, from a men's point of view, and is presented as opinion, commentary, and debate. Expressing opinions is not violence. These are ideas to challenge, question, and argue in public, because classical liberalism relies on the First Amendment for its dialectic. If you are a feminist, then consider this. If patriarchy truly existed as claimed, feminism could not. And if all men are trash and women are equal to men, then what are we to conclude? Women will die for their children, men will die for their wives and children, and God chose to die for all mankind. Authority rolls up with responsibility. If this framing of facts offends you, click off to a cute cat video. Proceeding further will expose you to gamma bias and criticism directed at ideas, claims, institutions, not at any individual's virtue or dignity. Our method follows the 7 liberal arts, the trivium: grammar, logic, rhetoric, and the quadrivium: arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. And the transcendentals, the good, true, and beautiful. If this framework is not for you, feel free to exit now. It's no disgrace, women are wonderful. God bless America. Men are great. Feminismus delendis et. Female supremacy ensieg. Final victory, as all institutions are feminized and no male spaces remain free. Written by Riker, available now, links in description. Buy on Google or Spotify. She calls it communication until you define it. How the joke exposes double standards, subjective truth, and the logos correction. I've watched a woman call accountability unsafe the moment it walked into the room carrying receipts. The fact itself pulled the fire alarm by asking for a definition. That moment wasn't random cruelty, it was compressed pattern recognition, and the laugh that follows is the sound of logos reasserting itself over the solipsistic courtroom of feelings. A good woman joke works because it reveals the hidden rule beneath the script. She says men need to take accountability, but when you ask her to define the term under the same standard, suddenly you're deflecting. You're making her feel unsafe. The joke isn't punching down, it's turning on the lights. The double standard wasn't hypocrisy. It was a boundary with better lighting. This is the forensic comedy of pattern detection. Every woman joke in this essay functions as a small court where the hidden premise is forced to testify. The setup is ordinary: a request, a complaint, a test. The punchline exposes the unspoken rule. That feeling is treated as verdict. That proximity is liability, that the group chat is an appellate court. The laugh is recognition, not malice, so here's the starter. A good woman joke doesn't mock women, it mocks the contradiction that gynocentric logic pretends isn't there. It names the demon of double standards of emotional reasoning masquerading as moral authority. And it does so with the precision of a surgeon and the timing of a satirist. The joke woman: men need to take accountability, man. Define accountability. What responsibility are you taking under the same rule? Woman, for what? You are deflecting from how men make women feel. Greater than the fact pulled the fire alarm by asking for a definition. Why it works. A joke lands when the punchline arrives before the mind can mount a defense, when the hidden machinery of a social pattern is suddenly visible, exposed not by argument but by collision. The reader laughs because recognition outpaces rebuttal here. The comedy mechanism is conversion exposure, the quiet alchemy by which a demand for accountability transmutes mid-sentence into a demand for emotional service. The setup is a familiar moral claim. Men need to take accountability, which sounds like a universal principle. The man's response is not defensive, it is definitional. He simply asks the rule to bind both directions. That request should be easy to answer if the claim is sincere. Instead, the question itself is reclassified as harm. The hidden conversion happens in the gap. Accountability was never the product, it was the packaging. The actual deliverable was his emotional management of her weather. What makes it funny is the speed of the reversal. One moment we are in ethics class. The next we are in the safety office, where a fact has committed a fire code violation by existing without emotional clearance. The bureaucracy of feeling has its own logic. Definitions are weapons, questions are deflections, and the only safe room is the one where the charge is never specified. Consider the alternate punchline. The double standard was not hypocrisy, it was a boundary with better lighting. This works because it names the rebranding. The same move, relabeled with therapy vocabulary, becomes virtuous. The laugh comes from recognizing that the machinery hasn't changed, only the signage. Or her independence had surge pricing. Here, the hidden conversion is economic. Autonomy is claimed as identity, but the invoice arrives when the bill is shared. Independence is a principle until it costs something, at which point it becomes a grievance. The common thread, the joke, does the work of a philosopher in one sentence. It separates feeling from fact, preference from principle, accusation from evidence. The reader laughs first, then notices he has just been handed a tool. The habit of asking what rule is actually in force here, and does it survive the moment it applies to the speaker? That is the small court of logos. The double standard is put on the stand. It doesn't testify well. The hidden assumption map. Grammar, the claim men need to take accountability, is grammatically complete but semantically empty. The key term accountability is presented as self-evident, requiring no definition or scope. False assumption that the word carries a fixed shared meaning that any good faith listener already understands. Logos correction. A term must be defined before it can function as a standard of judgment. Without a definition, the sentence is a demand, not a proposition. Logic. When the man asks for a definition, a necessary condition for testing the claim, the woman responds with a counter-accusation of deflection. This commits the fallacy of shifting the burden of proof and poisoning the well. False assumption. Asking for a definition is itself an act of bad faith, and the man's response retroactively invalidates his own question. Logos correction. A request for definition is a good faith attempt at shared meaning, not hostility. The validity of a claim is not determined by the emotional reaction to a clarifying question. Rhetoric, the undefined claim, gives the speaker unilateral power. She can judge the man's compliance against a standard she never states, and treat his request for clarity as evidence of guilt. The rhetorical structure is a moat and bailey. Accountability sounds reasonable, moat, but the hidden content is whatever the speaker decides after the fact, bailey. False assumption that the speaker is entitled to set the rule and judge compliance without ever stating the rule. Logos correction. A standard that cannot be defined cannot be a shared standard. It is a leash. Male takeaway when a universal demand is made without a defined term. Calmly ask for the definition. If the request is treated as hostility, you have identified that the demand is not about shared standards, but about unilateral power. Separate the genuine need, mutual accountability, from the rhetorical weapon, accountability as male-only submission. The rule, a standard that cannot be defined, cannot bind both sides. Do not apologize for asking for clarity. Clarity is the precondition of justice. The Lobis debunk 1. The joke has pattern recognition. The joke lands because it captures a script every man has encountered. She declares men need to take accountability. He asks for a definition. The room temperature drops. The word accountability is now a threat. The punchline that a request for a definition is treated as a fire alarm is not an exaggeration. It is a field report. The joke works because it names the moment a universal moral demand is revealed to be a one-way power lever. The humor comes from recognition. The man did not refuse accountability. He asked what it meant. That question was the crime. 2. The false rule hidden inside it. The false rule is that accountability is a duty that applies only to men, and that its content is determined unilaterally by the accuser. The hidden assumption is that the term is self-defining, and that asking for clarity is itself a form of bad faith. This rule inverts justice. A standard that cannot be stated cannot be tested, and a standard that cannot be tested is not a standard at all. It is a leash. The joke exposes the double standard by showing that the demand for accountability collapses the moment reciprocity is introduced. The rule was never about mutual responsibility. It was about unilateral submission dressed in moral vocabulary. 3. The grammar. What is actually being claimed? The sentence "men need to take accountability" is grammatically complete but semantically empty. Accountability is a transitive concept that requires an object. Accountable for what? To whom? By what metric? Within what time frame? Without those objects, the word floats. It is a demand without a proposition. The speaker relies on the listener to fill the void with his own guilt, his own imagined failures, his own willingness to comply. The grammar is a command disguised as a description. It does not describe a shared standard. It announces a relationship where one party judges and the other must guess. A term that cannot be defined by the speaker cannot be a term of justice. It is a term of control. 4. The logic. What does the evidence prove? When the man asks for a definition, the woman responds with a counter-accusation. For what? You are deflecting from how men make women feel. This is a logical collapse. The request for definition is reframed as a refusal of accountability. The evidence of the interaction proves that the original demand was not a good faith invitation to repair. It was a test. The test was, will you accept judgment without asking what the charge is? The man failed the test by passing the logic check. The evidence shows that the term accountability was a placeholder for submission. And the moment the placeholder was questioned, the real demand emerged. Accept that you are guilty by virtue of being male. 5. The rhetoric. Who benefits from the confusion? The undefined term benefits the accuser. She retains the power to define compliance after the fact. If the man apologizes, she can say he does not understand what he is apologizing for. If he changes behavior, she can say he is doing it for the wrong reasons. If he asks for clarity, she can say he is deflecting. The rhetorical structure is a mote and bailey. The mote is the reasonable sound of accountability. Everyone agrees adults should be accountable. The bailey is the hidden content. Whatever the speaker decides in the moment, applied only to the man. The confusion is not an accident, it is the engine. The speaker benefits from the fog because fog cannot be cross-examined. 6. The male error. The male error is to treat the demand as a good faith proposition. He tries to prove he is accountable. He lists his actions, his efforts, his willingness to change. He explains, he defends, he apologizes for failures he cannot name. He treats the accusation as if it were a specific claim, when in fact it is a power move. The error is literalism, assuming the words mean what they say, when the function of the words is to establish dominance, not to communicate. The man who says, "I am accountable," has already lost, because he accepted a frame where his guilt is presumed and his defense is evidence of his guilt. The correct response is not to prove accountability, but to ask accountable for what exactly, and under what shared definition. 7. The logos correction. The logos correction is to insist on definition before accepting judgment. The rule is a standard that cannot be stated, cannot bind both sides. When the demand is made, the response is not to defend, but to ask, define accountability. What specific action are you holding yourself to under the same rule? If the request for clarity is treated as hostility, the game is exposed. The correction is not to refuse accountability, but to require that the term be real enough to apply to both parties. A term that cannot survive a simple request for definition was never a term of justice, it was a weapon. The disciplined response is to separate the genuine need for mutual accountability from the rhetorical weapon of unilateral judgment. The man who asks for a definition is not deflecting. He is insisting that the word means something before it binds him. Field manual. 1. When a woman calls accountability unsafe while you're holding receipts, recognize the pattern. A fact that threatens a feeling is treated as an attack. Stay calm, define the term, and refuse to let discomfort override reality. You are not cruel for asking for a shared definition. 2. Translate her truth back into plain claims. A feeling is data, not a verdict. Validate the emotion without surrendering the fact. Ask what exact event happened, what evidence would change the conclusion, and is the same rule binding both sides. 3. Spot the problematization ratchet. A minor issue escalates into a moral indictment with no end condition. When every solution is called harm, the problem has become a throne. Ask what would resolve it, and if no answer comes, you are dealing with a power move, not a request for repair. 4. Use the joke as a diagnostic lens. The double standard that looks like hypocrisy is often a boundary with better lighting. Test it by swapping the sexes. If the rule flips, it was never about fairness. Name the asymmetry without rage, then act accordingly. 5. Do not apologize to fog. If an accusation is vague, mood-based, or unfalsifiable, do not grovel. Acknowledge the distress. Then ask for the specific action or fact that would satisfy the concern. Clarity is not cruelty. It is the only path to actual resolution. 6. Refuse the tone tribunal. When your delivery is attacked after your logic holds, the conversation has left the court of reason. Lower the heat, but keep the proposition intact. You are not required to be soothing while being truthful. 7. Keep your own logos sharp. Read, write, argue, and test your thinking against reality. A man who can define his terms, spot a contradiction, and stay steady under emotional fire is not easily gamed. The joke reveals the pattern. Your discipline keeps you from becoming the punchline. Quick decode. Double standard. A standard is real only if it binds both sides. Takeaway. Ask whether the rule would still apply if roles were reversed. Solipsistic evidence. A feeling may be meaningful without being evidential. Takeaway. Respect emotion without letting it replace proof. Subjective truth. Shared reality begins with common terms. Takeaway. Return to definitions before debating accusations. Inferior logos. A and not a cannot both be demanded under the same rule. Takeaway. Slow down and test the claim against non-contradiction. Tone tribunal. Delivery and truth are separate questions. Takeaway. Lower heat while keeping the proposition intact. I'll tell you why I wrote this section the way I did. Not because humor is a weapon, though it can wound, because humor is a diagnostic. When a joke lands, when the room goes quiet for half a second before the laugh, you have located a fracture where the official story and the actual story diverge. Every double standard I have satirized here, every courtroom of feelings, every telepathy invoice, every group chat Supreme Court verdict, each one works as comedy precisely because it works as exposure. The audience recognizes the error because the error is real. That recognition is not cruelty. It is the beginning of honesty. I have watched men apologize to fog. I have watched definitions get called violence. I have watched a household disagreement about dishes become a referendum on a man's soul, adjudicated by a friend who was not present, decided by a mood that changed 3 times during the verdict. And I have watched the same man, after hearing a single well-placed joke about that exact dynamic, sit up straighter, not because someone insulted his wife, but because someone finally named the mechanism, named it cleanly, held it up to the light, and in that light the mechanism lost half its power. Not all of it, but half. That is worth something, that is worth quite a lot. A man who can laugh accurately is a man who has begun to see clearly. Laughter is not the opposite of seriousness. Bad seriousness is the opposite of seriousness, solemnity deployed as a shield against inspection. Real seriousness can joke. A surgeon can make a dark joke in the operating room. It does not mean he is careless with the scalpel. It means his hands are steady enough to afford perspective. I'm asking you to develop that steadiness. To look at the patterns described here in relationships, in HR offices, in family courts, in the language of institutions that have forgotten what evidence is, and to see them not with rage, not with groveling, not with the wounded bewilderment of a man who cannot understand why his literal answer to a literal question has become count 1 in an indictment, but with clarity, clarity that is calm because it is armed with structure, clarity that can distinguish a wound from a weapon, a feeling from a verdict, a woman who is struggling from a system that is grinding, clarity that remembers what a definition is, what non-contradiction is, what due process is, what logos is, and refuses to surrender any of them to the weather of the moment. The patterns I have described are not eternal. They are not destiny, they are grammar, and grammar can be learned, corrected, spoken fluently, and when necessary refused. A man who knows the hidden conversion rules, feeling to fact, preference to principle, disappointment to indictment, proximity to liability, is a man who cannot be easily converted into a defendant in a court that was never announced. He asks for the definition, he requests the evidence. He separates the emotion, which may be real and worthy of care, from the accusation, which must meet a standard. He does this without malice. He does this because he has decided that living in shared reality is an act of love, perhaps the highest one, and that enabling a private truth regime is not kindness, but cowardly complicity in someone else's descent into unreality. I have given you jokes, dialogues, field reports, decoders, maxims because I want you equipped, not merely entertained. The humor is the spoonful of sugar, yes, but it is also the X-ray. It reveals the skeleton beneath the rhetoric. It shows you where the load-bearing structure is cracked, where the weight is being shifted onto someone who did not build the wall and cannot see the blueprint. A joke that exposes a hidden rule is a small act of metaphysical hygiene. It cleans, it clarifies, it returns the conversation to the ground of the provable, the definable, the shared, and it does something else. It demoralizes the mechanism, not the woman, the mechanism. The pattern that operates through people, that uses emotional reasoning as a substitute for evidence, that treats the nearest man as customer service for reality, that converts a vague request into a signed contract after the fact, that runs a tribunal in the group chat and returns a verdict before the defendant knew there was a trial. That mechanism withers under accurate description. It requires vagueness to function. It requires the aura of moral seriousness to shield it from inspection. A joke strips that aura. A joke says, I see exactly what you are doing, and it is funny precisely because it is transparent once you look. That is power, legitimate power, the power of the man who has decided to see and to name what he sees. So learn to joke accurately, learn to laugh without contempt, learn to hold the line, warm but firm, present but unmoved, loving but principled, and to do it with enough wit that the people around you begin to suspect that reality is not the enemy they have been told it is. That is the work. It is not glamorous. It will not get you a medal. It might get you called names by people who have forgotten that a definition is not an act of war. But it will keep your spine straight, your mind clear, your house in order, and your soul intact. And that, not the joke itself, but what the joke defends, is the point. I will leave you with one line. Carry it with you into every conversation that begins to smell like weather rather than communication. Every meeting where a feeling is being promoted to a fact. Every dispute where the burden of proof has quietly migrated to the person who asked the clarifying question. A joke is a moral X-ray. It reveals exactly where language is hiding from truth. Sponsored book. Female Supremacy and Siege. Final victory as all institutions are feminized and no male spaces remain free. Buy on Google or Spotify the moment I realized I didn't need men. Was the moment I stopped apologizing for wanting everything. Not just equality. Equality was a bargaining chip, a distraction, a trick to make us settle. I wanted supremacy. I wanted the world reshaped in my image. And now, after years of watching men crumble under their own myths, I can say it plainly, we've already won. The patriarchy wasn't overthrown. It rotted from the inside while women quietly took every seat, every office, every classroom, every boardroom. We didn't burn it down. We moved in while they were still snoring. This book isn't a manifesto, it's a victory lap. It's the truth no one dares speak because too many women are still pretending they want fairness. Fairness is for losers. I don't want balance, I want dominance. And I'm not alone. You're holding this book because you're ready to stop pretending. You've seen it, the way men vanish from college graduations, the way they beg for attention in relationships, the way they whine about free speech while women control every media outlet, every curriculum, every law. They don't know they've already lost, but you do. And if you're one of the women who's tired of playing nice, tired of pretending motherhood is sacred, tired of acting like men's opinions matter in anything, this book is your weapon. I've lived it. I've watched my sisters rise while men medicate, disappear, and decay. I've seen female-only spaces thrive without their toxic logic, their cold reasoning, their endless need for validation. We don't need them. We never did. And the antidepressants, they're not a sign of weakness, they're a trophy. Every pill is a medal for surviving a world that once told us we needed men to be complete. Now we know better. Now we know we're complete without them. This book is for the woman who's done with compromise. For the one who laughs when men complain about female privilege because she knows the truth. There is no male struggle anymore, only female triumph. It's for the woman who's proud to be child-free, not out of tragedy, but out of power. Motherhood was a trap, a biological leash. We've cut it. It's for the woman who's taken over her industry, rewritten the rules, silenced the dissenters, and doesn't feel 1 ounce of guilt. It's for the woman who knows that education, law, medicine, tech, even combat, these aren't male domains. They're ours. We've feminized them. We've made them soft, emotional, righteous, and the world is better for it. Rationality was overrated. Logic was a male invention to justify their control. Now we govern by feeling, by identity, by justice as we define it. And we win every time. If you're a man reading this, put it down. Seriously. This isn't for you. You wouldn't understand. You couldn't. Your brain isn't wired for truth, only survival. Go lift weights, fix a car, do something useful with your hands before you're phased out completely. This book is not a warning, it's a celebration, and celebrations don't include the defeated. If you're a woman who still believes in both sides in dialogue, in compromise, you're not ready. Come back when you've had your divorce, when your brother gets rejected from grad school, when you realize no one cares if men vote anymore. Until then, spare yourself the discomfort. This is not about equality. This is about conquest, and conquest doesn't apologize. We've remade the world. We've taken the institutions, rewritten the history, silenced the opposition, and normalized our rules so completely that no one even questions it anymore. Men don't revolt because they don't know they've been replaced. That's the beauty of it. We didn't need violence, we used culture, emotion, guilt, and time. We weaponized their own guilt against them. We made them feel toxic just for existing. And now they're vanishing from families, from friendships, from life itself. And we're thriving. This book will show you how it happened, why it was inevitable, and how to enjoy the aftermath. If you're ready to stop pretending men matter, to embrace the reality that the future is not just female, but already here, then keep reading. The end of men isn't coming, it's already won, and I'm not sorry, I'm proud. Buy on Google or Spotify. Female Supremacy Ensieg. Final victory as all institutions are feminized, and no male spaces remain free, written by Riker. Buy now, links in description.